Mr. Alan Bass, can you hear us? Okay, for the record, you're welcome to have a seat, counsel. For the record, I had ordered that Mr. Alan Bass be present in court physically. My understanding from our security, our jail personnel, is that Mr. Alan Bass is refusing to come to court and refusing to participate. My understanding is that the staff has placed a video monitor outside of Mr. Alan Bass's cell so that he may hear the proceedings, but at this point we are going to proceed as planned. Anyone have any question or problem about that?
No, Your Honor. No.
Okay. Today is the date and time set for sentencing in both files. We have Mr. Killowald here and Mr. Feaster here on behalf of Mr. Alan Bass. On both of his files, we have Ms. Reiser here on behalf of the people. I am going to ask a series of questions. Mr. Killowald and Mr. Feaster are going to be able to answer those questions on the record for you. Mr. Alan Bass, they are your official attorneys and they are going to proceed in that way. I will take up your motion to discharge Mr. Killowald first because you did file a series of motions. They are not properly filed. And so, but that is one that you, I believe, have the right to have the court hear. Mr. Killowald did file a motion or did argue a motion yesterday for a new trial, which was denied. But based on my review of the court file, there were a series of motions filed on your behalf. Pro per, you are represented by Mr. Killowald. The first is a motion to discharge attorney for good cause pursuant to MRPC 1.16. I did have a chance to review that motion. Mr. Alan Bass, if there's anything you would like to add to what you filed, although I don't even know if it's technically filed correctly, but if there's anything you'd like to place on the record, I'm willing to listen at this time. Okay. At this time, my assumption is because you did not respond to me that you do not wish to add anything to that. The court has had an opportunity to review that motion to discharge Mr. Killowald for good cause. The court does not find good cause in that motion, and thus that motion is denied. The remaining motions, motion to remand for a Ginther hearing, motion for judgment of acquittal or in the alternative for a new trial, or motion for Judge Conlon to recuse or disqualify himself. I am denying those remaining motions as well. They are denied without prejudice because they are all subject to your appellate rights. You will be assigned, if you request that, an appellate attorney that can raise any of those issues at that time. The motion for judgment of acquittal or in the alternative motion for a new trial is the motion that Mr. Killowald filed and was arguing yesterday, and that was denied as well. So at this time, I believe the record is clear to proceed, and I'm ready to go. So anything else from counsel before we proceed?
Judge, did you get I just handed in the order denying the trial. Did you get that?
Okay. I will sign that as we speak.
I would just have your honor. I did see a corrections officer. If you could just confirm that they can hear what you're saying.
Okay. And I will just note for the record that Mr. Alan Bass appears to be covering the window of his cell with a cloth. I'm not sure if that impedes his ability to hear. Is anyone in the jail present outside Mr. Alan Bass's cell?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Are we broadcasting live, loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, Your Honor.
Is it your belief that whatever barrier is in front of Mr. Alan Bass's cell does not prevent him from hearing the proceedings that are going on at this time?
He's making a lot of noise, but I believe that if he stopped making noise, he can hear what's going on.
So you believe that he can hear us, is that correct?
If he was to stop yelling, yes, I believe he can hear us.
Okay. All right. Today is the date and time set for sentencing in this matter. I have had a chance to review the pre-sentence report. I will take into consideration any of the scoring done of the sentencing guidelines by the MDOC. I will hear at this point any argument from Mr. Killowald, Mr. Feaster, and Ms. Reiser on those calculations. I have scored them myself, and based on all of that, I will consider this all input as an advice to the court on the issue of the defendant's sentence. Mr. Killowald, I am about 100% sure you have reviewed the pre-sentence report. I guess I will ask you the question, have you had an opportunity to review that with your client?
Your Honor, for the record, I did drop off this report a couple of weeks ago. We went over it briefly. Mr. Allen Bass did make, again, as I repeated, I just repeat, the only correction he had asked me to make, which we did, was on page 3 of the agent's description of the offense, where the second last paragraph, where it starts Richie, we all agreed that at the end of that last sentence on the second last paragraph, it should be comma regarding what's that.
Yeah.
We all agree to that.
And I made
Other than
that
that, Your Honor, I have no arguments as to the scoring, the guidelines. I would just like, as far as corrections, just on page 1 and 2, he should have another 8 additional days, both to my case, which should be 476 on page 1, the face page, and page 2 for credits, and then not to speak for Mr. Easter, but his should also be 8 days, 351 on both page 1 and page 3. But other than that, Your Honor, I think correction to be made. Your Honor, I understand that for the sentence, it's mandatory 25 years. You made a comment that you were thinking of additional sanctions. I would just ask the court to please consider my client's maybe frame of mind at this hearing. And I would just ask you to sentence accordingly.
All right. And I'm sorry, Mr. Killowald, since this is your file, what's the number for the 468 increase?
It both should be 8 days, Your Honor. Mine should be 476 on page 1. And the sentencing date should be changed also.
I've got that. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Mr. Feaster, do you have any additions, corrections, or deletions to the pre-sentence report? Any comment on the scoring or any allocution on behalf of the client?
Just very briefly, Judge. As Mr. Killowald said, I'd asked the report to indicate the 8 additional days on my file to 351, and the date of sentencing to be changed accordingly. In terms of elocution, Mr. Alabas did not particularly want to go over this file when I tried to meet with him. This obviously is hopefully going to be consumed with the more serious charge that Mr. Killowald and Ms. Reiser are handling. So we'd ask you to, I believe the commission is requesting 24 months on the minimum on the OWI case. And so I ask you to sentence them accordingly and hopefully concurrently to whatever you send it to Mr. Killowald.
All right. I'm going a little out of my usual order, but Ms. Reiser, you have the floor. Any comments on the scoring, as well as any comment on the recommended conditions of the sentence report, and anything else you'd like to wrap up with?
Just briefly, Your Honor, I believe I agree with both of the guidelines in the CSC first degree. I don't have any corrections to the guidelines as they're scored by the Michigan Department of Corrections, as well on the OWI third offense. I believe that those guidelines are scored appropriately, so we have no corrections to the guidelines as they're scored. I would agree to the jail credit in file 2244 FC with a sentence date of 4/13/2023 today. The jail credit should stand at 476 days. And in file 2239 FH, sentence date of 4/13/23, the credit should stand at 351 days. And that would also be reflected on page 2 under evaluation and plan, changing the dates to 476 and 351 days. I otherwise believe that this is an appropriate sentence based on the facts of this case. Just was a very, very young child in the custody of her mother, co-defendant Patricia McDaniel, the one person that we would hope and pray that would protect her, and she did just the opposite with this defendant, with Richard Allen Bass. And so I think the recommendation, the mandatory minimum of 25 years is appropriate, and we would ask that you follow that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pre-sentence report and done the scoring myself. I too find that there's information in the report to support the calculations provided by Michigan Department of Corrections. So I will adopt those, and then the sentencing information report will follow, and I will sign those. All right. Mr. Alan Bass, is there anything you wish to say before I impose sentence? I'm just going to ask the jail staff, because he is muted, if there is anything that he is attempting to say, would you unmute him for the moment? Mr. Alan Bass, is there anything you wish to say before I impose sentence? Okay, I'm hearing nothing. He is unmuted at this point. You can go ahead and mute him again. I will proceed. All right, the court will just make a record here again. When sentencings are, I don't know how to put this, more than the norm, if you will, I tend to address the four considerations of the court when I do sentence, that being punishment, rehabilitation, protection of society, and deterrence. I think that those are somewhat philosophical principles. They do apply in every case, but in this case, Mr. Alan Bass and I have had some back and forth. Let me take care of a couple of the lower hanging fruit issues first, and by that I don't mean to diminish anything, but there is a pending finding of this court that Mr. Alan Bass is in contempt of court for his behavior back in the fall of 2022. At this point, I am going to dismiss those contempt proceedings. At the hearing that created that situation, and then the follow-up, I indicated that I would take under advisement any sentence on contempt pending the outcome of the trial. And based on the outcome of the trial, the jury trial, in the sentencing today, I'm going to dismiss those contempt charges at this time. So that will take care of that, and there's no longer any pending contempt that is purged.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. As far as Mr. Feaster's file, that will be a concurrent sentence, so I will go through that as well. And so then as far as Mr. Kilowald's file, the issues of punishment, rehabilitation, protection of society, and deterrence are, I think, wrapped into the recommendation and are somewhat self-evident. Mr. Alan Bass availed himself of his constitutional right to a jury trial. He had effective assistance of counsel at the trial. He did participate fully in the trial as he wished to, and candidly, the jury did find him guilty of the charge. And so therefore, the court has no option but to proceed to sentence in this matter, and that is my job, and I will do that. Okay. As to count one under 22-44 FC, criminal sexual conduct, first degree, person under 13, defendant 17 years of age or older. Guideline sentencing recommendations are 108 to 180 months. It is the sentence of the court that you serve 25 to 50 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections with credit for 476 days served, concurrent to docket 22-272FH. Additional conditions. Number one, you must register as required by the Michigan Sex Offender Registration Act and comply with all the requirements of that act. You must provide a completed copy of the Michigan Sex Offenders Registration Form to your field agent on your first in-person report following vacating your residence. Any address change, address verification, or change in your status with an institution of higher education. At each address change or verification period, you must present your Michigan operator's license, chauffeur's license, or personal identification card to the field agent at your first in-person contact. Number two, you must not have verbal, written, electronic, or physical contact with either directly or through another person, and you must not be within 500 feet of their residence, school, or place of employment. Number three, you must comply with DNA testing and pay a $60 fee as ordered by the court. Number four, you must pay a $68 state cost as ordered by the court. Number five, you must pay a crime victim assessment in the amount of $130 as ordered by the court. Number 6, you must pay court costs of $1,611 as ordered by the court. Number 7, you must pay attorney fees of $650 as ordered by the court. And number 8, you must comply with lifetime electronic monitoring. In file number 22-239FH, count 1, operating while intoxicated, impaired, or under the influence of controlled substance, third offense. Guideline sentencing recommendations in this file are 7 to 23 months. It is the sentence of the court that you serve 23 months to 60 months in the Michigan Department of Corrections with credit for 351 days served, concurrent to docket 22-44-FC. Because it is a separate file, you must pay $68 state cost as ordered by the court. Number 2, you must pay a crime victim assessment in the amount of $130 as ordered by the court. And I am striking conditions number 3 and 4 because they are duplicative and it is a separate file. That concludes the sentencing in this matter. Mr. Alan Bass, do you have any questions for me at this time? Mr. Alan Bass is not raising his hand. He is still partially blocked by some barrier in his cell, so the court will make the assumption that he has heard everything presently, and that will conclude the hearing, counsel, unless you have anything else to add.
Judge, just for the record, when I gave Mr. Allen Bass his recent report, I also gave him a poet right form typed out.
All right, I appreciate that. Mr. Alan Bass, you do have the right to appeal this. Mr. Killowald has given you the form that gives you all the information about that. You do need to know that if you are requesting court-appointed counsel because you cannot afford it, you must make that request within 42 days of today's date. So I took the motions a little out of order because today is the date actually where the sentence enters and that starts the timing. But I did substantively rule on your motion to dismiss or dismiss Mr. Killowald, and the other motions, as I said, are preserved on appeal for your action if you so choose.